Welcome back to Relatable Wisdom, the podcast where everyday people share the quotes that shaped how they see life, offering you daily doses of perspective and hope that might just change yours too. Today's guest is Massimo Rigotti, an author, recovery advocate from Nebraska who's journeyed through life's deepest valleys and highest peaks. He created an innovative sober method to help others find their unique flavor of confidence in sobriety, turning his own transformation into a beacon of hope for countless others. Let's step into Massimo's world and hear the words that have guided him through his remarkable journey. Can you tell us your name and what you do?
Yes, I'm Massimo Rigotti, and I am a confidential recovery specialist. So I help people that are high performers and find their sobriety and their confidence to remain sober.
Okay. Thank you for accepting the invitation to be on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, what's your favorite quote?
My favorite quote is "Start now. Don't waste time. Waiting until tomorrow to begin is a tremendous misuse of life."
Ooh, wow. Wow, that's heavy. What's the story behind this quote?
Well, it may sound really interesting, but my dad said that so often when I was growing up that it became sort of a life mantra. He would say, "Well, just start now." And I would say, "Well, why are we starting now?" "Well, because if you don't, your life, it's just completely misused." And when you're younger, you don't really think about those things. But as you get older, you realize that that was a foundational skill that he was building within me to begin. Don't wait around. You don't always have to have everything in order to get going. And I think that that's fundamentally where it began. And I just heard it so often that when I was struggling myself with addiction and trying to find my way into the light again, and I kept putting it off. And then I remembered Dad saying, "Start now." And that was the beginning.
It's a good thing you mentioned addiction, because in a lot of areas where this advice is really strong is in the areas of addiction. Of course, it's important in all areas of life. But with addiction, it's funny because when you're like, oh, you feel this guilt and all these things, and like, I need to make a change. I need to become this man that I have in my head, not what I am now. And you're like, okay, well, let me just do what I need to do for this week. Next week, I'm a completely brand new man. Or, oh, this month, from the 1st of July, I'm launching a new man completely. And before you know it, you're like, well, the next month. And now 5 years is gone and you're wondering, what happened?
Yeah, exactly. It's like New Year's resolutions to me are silly. If you have an idea that you want to improve something and you thought about it in November, well, then start November 1st or start the very day that you say, "Hey, I've always wanted to do this." Well, then do it. What would it take? Start immediately. Start researching. Figure out how you're going to make it happen. It really will change your life because you have this desire to constantly be moving forward in your life. It's a very purposeful quote.
Yeah. Now, before I ask for frameworks and ways we can get to start immediately, I want to ask you this question, and that is, over the course of your life, has there been a time, a place where the quote felt like it wasn't true? Now, what I mean by it wasn't true, where the situation felt like you didn't have to start now, like you could do it. It made very much more sense to start maybe next month, next 2 months. And in retrospect, looking back, you realize that the quote was actually really true. That it was just, you were in the moments of emotions and all that. Is there an instance like that you can share?
Yeah, in thinking about what you just said, I can think of one instance, and this is, I was about 19 at the time, and I was in a job that I really did not like at all, and was not experienced enough in the world to quite know if going out into something entirely new was the wisest decision. And so I kind of just pushed it off and said, "Well, I'll be okay here. This job isn't that bad."
Yeah.
Until suddenly I found myself with the possibility, because of a merger that had taken place, that I was going to lose this job I had. And this opportunity that had been sitting that I said, oh, I can call this person later. I'll be able to reach out and make that happen. And then that opportunity fell through because I had waited. And then I found myself needing to figure things out very quickly and find new employ. But what was amazing is that something fell out of the sky and made everything all right. And it started an entirely new crazy chapter of my life. But looking back, I often wondered that fork in the road. You know, what would have happened if I had started now and took that other opportunity? How would my life changed? And I realize that we can't go back and look in the rearview mirror and wonder all the what ifs, because you could what if yourself into never doing anything at all, right? But it still is an interesting kind of mind exploration to just kind of ponder that for a moment and recognize that perhaps I should have started right away.
Yeah. What are some of the common reasons, right? The common excuses that people say people do not start, that makes people not start now, that makes people say, okay, I'll do it next month, I'll do it 6 months from now, I'll do it 8 months from now, so that as they are listening, right, they can look at the reasons and say, yeah, I do that. These are some of the reasons that I give for not doing what I want to do. He's talking about me.
Well, what are the most common reasons that you get is that I'll be in a better position to do it if I waited until these things are right. And those things will never be right. There will never be a perfect time. And we build these stories in our mind that say, I will be able to do this once I have this job and once my kid goes off to college. Oh, okay. Or you could just start right now, you know. Why are you waiting 6 months until that happens? So I think that fundamentally humans, we're inherently lazy, number one. So let's just get that out of the way, right? So if you take that as a known, then it's very easy for you to create reasons to not start now because it's easier not to. And we also maximize for the most efficient way to achieve things in life. And sometimes we like to go back and dissect it. Well, maybe there's an easier way I can get this. Rather than just beginning, we start looking at ways to do things on the cheap and not put in the time, energy, and effort that's necessary to actually be successful at something, and being relentless in that pursuit to make sure that you achieve it. So I think that those are a couple of common things, but we're all the same. We're all the same exact way in this putting things to the side and saying, oh, I'll start that tomorrow, and then tomorrow.
I love the fact you said, well, if I do it 6 months from now, I'll be in a better position to do this. Now, I know you're someone who is speaking from experience, right? You've had your own share of of not starting now, right? What was, because usually people we confuse ourselves, we what's the word? We mislead ourselves with concepts that mean absolutely nothing. When we say be in a better position, how can we, what I mean is that usually in that scenario, I ask myself, okay, if I say be in a better position, what is the measurable way to know that I'm in a better position? What does that mean? What does that look like? Let's take a quick pause. If you're enjoying this conversation and want more thought-provoking ideas straight to your inbox, join the Relatable Wisdom email list. It's free, quick, and filled with bite-sized insights, inspiring quotes, and behind-the-scenes reflections from our guests. Just head to relatablewisdom.com/join. That is relatablewisdom.com/join, or tap the link in the show notes. And hey, subscribing to the podcast helps more than you think, and it's free. So if you haven't already, hit that follow button wherever you're listening. All right, let's get back to the conversation.
Well, I think that's the exact reason that it becomes something you can push off, because most of the time, you don't have any actual measures that you're putting in place to say what is a better position. This is just some nebulous thing out in the cloud that we just say, oh, I'll be in a better position, but we don't define that. Now, if that was defined, I might say, okay, you've got a good plan and that's what you need to achieve. but 9 times out of 10, it's not defined. It's just something that people say. If you said, I will be in a better position because this contract is going to arrive for my company, and then I can utilize those funds to invest in this new deal. Okay, I will agree with you. In 3 weeks, you will be in a better financial position to take that. I'm all aboard. But generally speaking, there's not something that is necessarily holding you up. We're talking about internal things that hold us back from improving ourselves. And so there really is no true measure that we can set aside and say, I'll be in a better position. There's never a right time to do anything, really. If you have a drive and determination to do it, then do it. A common one that I always think about is when people say, it's not the right time to have children. Well, I'll tell you, it's always the right time to have children because there's never a good time to have children, ever.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Earlier on, you mentioned that we have to be specific and concrete about it. I feel like, you see, the thing is that when we make these decisions, we're in a place where we don't even feel confident. We feel afraid, we're scared. And so what better position is coming from is, do I feel, right? So it's not a question of, like you said, better position, I have the funding, these things in place. Okay, I need to connect with this partnership. I need to talk to this person so that we can then make an investment. These things are not, that's not what we're talking about in terms of better position. It's just like, I feel, right? And most of the time, okay, let me just put this out there. Let's say someone wants to start a podcast, right? You have that in-depth, that deep want or desire to start a podcast, and you're like, okay, well, when I'm in a better position to start a podcast, and I'm like, okay, what does that mean? Well, right now I'm not eloquent enough, and when I become more eloquent, I will start a podcast. And I'm like, right now you don't even have the skills. You've not done this before. There are no evidence to show that you have the skills. And the funny thing here is that the only way to get the evidence is by doing it, which is the irony of the whole matter.
You're so correct on that. And with each passing, bringing up podcasting, it's like the first time that I was asked to be on a podcast, and that first interview. And I was like, why would anyone want to interview me? Well, they wanted to interview me because I had written a book and they wanted to hear about it. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'll go on this podcast. But I wasn't sure that I should do it. I mean, like, maybe there'd be a better time. Maybe I could practice and then I would get better at this podcasting thing. And so I tried to talk myself out of that very first interview that I had, just for that very reason. There would be a better time for me to do this.
Yeah. And the sweet thing that most persons don't get is that when I started the podcast, the first 2 interviews, it was scary. Now, the 50th interview, now this is interesting that happened, right? It's not that I don't feel afraid. It's just like the fear is like one of those noisy neighbor that you've grown accustomed to living with you. So they make their noise, but it doesn't affect what you do or say. So you still go about doing your own thing. It's just like that when you have a dog that's a defense that barks but does not bite or does not do anything. You're like, yeah, that's how the dog does. And you do your stuff. You're not scared. You're not afraid. There's nothing. And you do what you do. But at the very beginning, the fear itself, it affects what you do. But now when the thought comes up, I'm like, well, I already done 50 interviews and they went well. So what's the big deal? Let me just sit down and show up. I'll see where it goes.
Yes, that's so true. I recently did my 100th podcast interview.
Wow, congrats.
And when I crossed that threshold, I was like, wow, this is wild. And I feel so comfortable and confident doing them now that I really am enjoying them. And it used to be stressful. Now I meet so many interesting people like yourself that I just want to talk to them more. You know, we end an interview and I'm like, boy, I really want to know that person even more. And I've managed to keep in touch with a few people that I've interviewed with. And I really am glad that I have, because it's really cool to see those stories continue.
Yeah. And the world tells us that, you have to fake it till you make it. The world tells us that, you have to be confident. And for me, I'm like, the best form, let's just put it this way. Let's put it this way. In real life, right? You trust people based on their track record. Like, the higher the track record, the higher the trust, right? If you show up and you tell me, dude, I love for you to invest money. I'm like, who are you? I don't know you. Like, if I give you my money, it's just gambling. Like, but then if I have someone, a childhood friend, who've been there, we've done business deals together, and they've always delivered, and then he tells me, and I'm like, oh well, I don't have the money now, but okay, let me see how I can make it, arrange it. And then
Hmm.
I'll send to you. It's not really an issue. The same thing with confidence, right?
Hmm.
At the beginning, when we're starting out, we don't have any track record. And so we need to start in as soon as possible so that we can get over that phase of having nothing to show that you know what you're doing.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm not terribly fond of the fake it until you make it quote out there, mainly because I think it detracts from the authentic self that you need to be in those moments. And rather than focusing on trying to be confident, I think that embracing that fear and being able to be yourself and recognize that this is a little scary for me, but I'm going to remain who I am and not try
Yeah.
to be the podcaster or be the guest. You know what I mean? And just I'm just going to try to be myself. And if I present in a great way, then people will accept me for who I am. And I think that authentic self is so important.
Yeah, yeah. Well, when you see it as a learning experience, like, oh, I'm a student, right? Students of whatever field, they don't feel like imposters. They're like, oh, I'm a student of medicine. Oh, I don't even know what I'm doing. You're a student, you're learning. That's what you're doing. You're supposed to learn this stuff. And so you're spending however many years it takes to get to know the ropes of the thing you're doing. You're studying, you meet your professor, you're like, sir, what's
Mhm.
this? What does this mean? So I tried this, the grade, you're like, okay, so this didn't work. Right? But oftentimes we are going there as if you already know what you're doing. You don't know what you're doing.
Yes.
So
Yes.
don't pretend like you know what you're doing. Don't, because it's hard to teach a man that which he already thinks he knows.
Yes. Yes. Always be humble in those situations, because what I found in my own experience in life is that even the experts aren't always sure about the new things that are around them. And it's okay to
Yeah,
be a little skeptical of the people who claim that they know things that they may not know much more than you do, especially if it's new to everybody. And so I think that that can level the playing field a lot in these situations where you might think that you don't know as much. You may know as much as the next person. Just because you don't have credentials after your name, you might be both talking about something that neither one of you know much about. And I think it's really important to recognize the surroundings that you're in and lend your best knowledge to a situation like that.
yeah. I've seen a common trait in people, and that is people prefer to to look smart rather than be smart, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
but the irony is that in order to look smart, you will be stupid. You are when you try to look smart, you're stupid. But when you are smart, you will look stupid. So you're like, oh, what does
Yes.
that mean? They're like, oh, so you mean doesn't even know what that stuff is? But guess what? You clarify it, and I know it, and now I'm smart.
Mm-hmm.
But you
Yes.
you you pretend, and yet after the conversation, you still you still
The
don't
the
know
smart
how.
person the smart person is the one who's asking the most questions,
Yeah,
generally speaking, because they want to understand it within their frame of knowledge. They may not know the particular field, but they can combine the two together. Your specialty might be in engineering and you're talking to somebody that's working in architecture. You're in
yeah,
two divergent fields, but if you ask the right questions, you will understand enough to be able to relate to the situation, and that's true intelligence.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for giving that an analogy. Massimo, when people hear addiction, and I know probably you might be familiar with this, the first thing that comes to their mind is, oh, he's a cocaine addict. What's one of the really common one they portray in the movie, heroin addict. Now, of course, they're all addictions too, right? But
Mhm.
one of the things I've noticed is that there are other subtle addictions that they're not quote unquote terrible things. They're not illegal, right? They're legal
Mhm.
things, right? They're
Yeah.
stuff that you can't get fined or prosecuted for. But you see that after 5 or 10 years, if you keep doing that thing, what your life will become is not a place you want to be. Is a place that scares fear down your spine when you even think of it. And some common examples, I'm trying to think of an example now, but what's a common example of something that people are addicted to? but it's not
Well,
illegal.
I mean, alcohol is definitely one of those things. But
Yeah.
I've helped people that are addicted to food, that are
Okay.
addicted to their devices. That's
Okay.
probably one of the most common things that
Yeah.
people reach out to me today about is device addiction, and it really is. It will change your life if you begin working for the substance or the device or whatever that is taking hold of you. And there are two things that are very interesting about food addiction and device addiction. Food, especially, because we all need to eat. So the
Yeah.
relationship with food is a very, very difficult one. And I've learned so much because my addiction was alcohol and cocaine. So I can relate to those
Yeah.
as addiction. So drug addiction, alcohol addiction, I can relate to that and so it's easier for me to work with those. But I'm learning so much about food addiction here recently and understanding that it's changing the relationship that you have with these things that overtake you. But you can get addicted to anything. You could become addicted to running. You could become addicted to reading 10 hours a day, which actually I would argue that's probably could be a good thing, but but it still can be construed as an addiction.
Uh, yeah. Okay. 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 What is a framework, right, or a system one could easily use to say I'm addicted, right? Because most people they're addicted, but they're not even aware, right?
Yeah. If you cannot set something aside and be without it for a period of time without physical shaking is something that actually occurs to some of the people who I work with device addiction. I will take their phone away from them, and within a matter of 2 or 3 minutes, they are shaking like they need a fix. And that tells you how scary device addiction
Ooh,
can become.
wow.
But it's that overriding thought, like, I need this. I have to have this. I will do anything if you would just give me another drink. It's that overriding thought. And you can't run from those thoughts. You'll know really quickly. If you could just sit and go, well, I'll give you a specific example. When I was drinking heavily, I always made sure that I had a bottle of Jack Daniels at least with me. If I went someplace, even if I knew I was going to the bar, I would still put one in a bottle in the trunk
Yeah.
because what if the bar ran out of my favorite liquor? Which then I could go to the parking lot and I mean that tells you how addicted you are to something when you start planning like how can I go someplace without drinking? Will I be able to stop on the way and get a drink before I get there? And that's the type of planning that I used to do to ensure that I would have alcohol. So if you're making a 3-hour journey, I would have to make sure that I could stop a couple times so I could have a drink in order to make it there.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's being able to separate yourself from it.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the framework you just suggested, and looking at it, a lot of persons they have an addiction, right? And for some persons they know that this is eventually what it will lead to, right? They know that if I keep scrolling on TikTok, right, over and over and over and over again, I don't get to work on my dreams. I don't get to work on the things I want, and eventually 2 3 years will just pass, and I'll be
Mm-hmm.
wondering where all my time went to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's so discouraging. And I think that anyone who is in that so-called death scrolling challenge, where any time that they have any amount of reflection point where they could just sit with their thoughts for a moment and instead they pick up to get that rush to be scrolling. I think anytime that you're doing that, you're just hurting yourself. And then when you're without it, you step back and you realize, I haven't got anything done this week. And then, as you said, it becomes a year, and then you haven't achieved anything. And then it goes right back into my favorite quote, because they're sitting there saying, you know what, I'm going to start working on that right after I scroll my TikTok again. Start now.
Ah, I feel like you're just calling out my listeners without mentioning their name, and like, if you're going to talk to me, just call my name. Why do you have to pass corners and give examples? Call my name so I know you are talking to me. Okay.
If we were doing this live, we could I could read off their names, right?
That would be nice. We could collaborate on an idea like that in the future. So, because this is a very important topic, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not just but people, when they hear addiction, they're like, I don't do drugs, I don't do cocaine, I don't drink, I'm good. And whereas they have an addiction that is slowly eating away their time, eating away their happiness, eating away everything. And that it would be nice to really have a live stream where we can break things down and have people tune in. I'll reach out to you and we'll make something work out.
Absolutely.
In coding and all these machines and all these things, there's a thing they call master key, master override, something like that, such that like in the house, if there's fire or smoke detected, it starts sprinkling water, right?
Yep.
Whether even if the smoke is from something that has nothing to do with fire, right? You just see it brings in water. What is there a system that every time we feel like we should put stuff out there in the future, we can just switch to that system that immediately we start getting things done? Does the question make sense?
Yes, your question does make sense, and unfortunately, that comes from within. That is that's really where it comes into the fundamentals of what I teach in the sober method, because the challenge that is causing you to go into this phone is related to something that's unresolved in your own life. And you may not think so right now. You probably think I'm crazy saying this. Yet everybody I've worked with that has these tremendous challenges with devices, they're running from something. They're trying not to face some challenge in their life. And once they face that head on, and that's what I help them do, they don't need the phone anymore. It really is almost magical. And then if they are tempted to go to their phone, it's like, why do I even need it? And so the question then becomes flipped, because they have managed to close off what was to them necessary to get through the challenge and the pain or whatever was really holding them back. So if you see someone that really is struggling with any type of addiction, there's some underlying trauma that they need to search and get to. And that's where the magic happens. That's when you find that, your life changes.
Yeah, the key takeaway from what you've just said so far is that addiction is a symptom of an underlying problem, disease, issue that needs to be dealt with. You do not treat symptoms. The symptoms lead you to treat diseases and the issue. Because if you treat symptoms, what happens is that once you try it 1 week, the next week I'm like, Massimo, I'm back at it again. What happened? Yes. You told me this stuff was supposed to work, but now I'm even spending more time. Thank you so much, Massimo.
Well, the other thing that happens there too is that they might switch addictions. Let's say we get them off alcohol, but then they're on their phone all the time. It's like, man, I stopped drinking, but I can't put my phone down. I've actually had that happen. That's why I'm bringing it up. It actually has happened, and this was early on in my coaching, and I hadn't quite connected the need to truly, extinguish that trauma challenge is being so necessary that it was beyond the substance, so to speak. It sounds cliche, but it really was beyond the substance. There was something deeper, and once I figured that out, it really has helped a lot more people.
There is. It doesn't sound cliche. There is. Thank you so much, Massimo. I know this is a topic that it's supposed to be for like 2 hours. We'll break things down such that when people watch it at the end of the day, they have a system, a framework to move on to the next step and have take necessary actions. My listeners will be interested, to learn some of the things you mentioned, the sober method, to diagnose the underlying issues and all that. Where can they do that?
Absolutely. Sobermethod.com is my website. I'm on all socials at Sober Method, and I have a community on Reddit where I personally answer anybody who posts out there. It's anonymous, so if you got a question for me, you'll definitely hear from me.
Well, thank you, Massimo. It's been an absolute delight chatting with you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. You've been listening to Relatable Wisdom, and I've been your host, Wisdom Okonkwo. You've been listening to the podcast where every story, quote, and insight helps you see life a little differently. If you enjoyed today's episode, follow the show on your favorite podcast app and share it with someone who loved the conversation. For more inspiring voices and timeless wisdom, visit relatablewisdom.com. Until next time, keep living, learning, and collecting wisdom that matters most to you.